Lecture 5 begins with a new dream, the most important, I think, of the first fall term of 1930. The patient dreams she's in a graveyard in France where soldiers are buried in a large mass grave. Into a tombstone was carved the image of a saint and an image of a bull, but each were both half dead and half alive, and the bull was gnawing at the fingers of the saint. So the dreamer in the dream walks away shaking her hand as if, she says, it too was being gnawed at by the bull. And the dreamer then finds herself driving down a steep hill, afraid that the brakes on the car would not be strong enough, but eventually reaches the bottom safely. Jung's interpretation begins with a suggestion that the location in France represents, since it's now 1930, a reference to the devastations of World War I, and it as a symbol for a certain destruction or crumbling of civilized values. In particular, he makes an association in light of the presence of the image of the saint, to the crumbling of Christian values and their insufficiency in preventing the World War in which, quote, man raged on like mad when nobody wanted to kill each other, yet they went right on killing, end quote. More specifically, Jung suggests that what the war brought about was a deterioration in two kinds of beliefs. One that, quote, there is a power watching over us, leading us all to a happy end. Humanity can derive some meaning because ultimately a power is guiding its steps towards a righteous goal. Or this first one, the war, he thinks, left humankind questioning the possibility of a benevolent hand of a Father God. And then the second belief he thinks the war made impossible, quote, this world is a hell and all the people in it are devils, yet I have done my best to open their eyes even if they won't see, so I have done my duty and now I can die. Or the war, he thinks, left humankind questioning whether a personal righteousness is enough, or whether a human being can really be righteous at all. Both these beliefs, in light of war, seem insufficient, and they have yet to be replaced. So the patient, Jung says, must overcome the war, that is, find a new moral point of view for the mourning of her Christian unconscious. The patient's unconscious is thoroughly Christian. She believes herself to be, in her feeling aspect, a saint, one who, when the choice is given, gives herself in self-sacrifice to those around her, but the war and its evil demands a change of heart. Indeed, it was in one aspect this self-giving for an ideal, Jung says, that led to the war, the idea that whole countries would give themselves over to an ideal, unrelentingly. But this self-sacrifice for an ideal, or to prevent the suffering of one's compatriots can, Jung says, be the very cause of suffering for them. This is the dangerous ambiguity of Christianity. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The patient's unconscious is that of a saint who renounces herself, renounces her own feelings for the feelings of others, and you see this in the projection of her feeling, the confusion that her feelings are actually others' feelings. She's obsessed, you might say, with the feelings of others. And now the maternal instinct we saw in a prior dream, cast here in its saintly form, is being gnawed away by the natural forces symbolized by the bull. The sacrificial maternal instinct must find a new object. It must direct itself towards her own feeling. She must be the mother of her own crucified feelings, rather than being crucified by the feelings of others. This, I would say, is Jung's contribution to the individuation of the Christian religion, the withdrawal of the projection of the crucified God from the outer world, to understand that such a God lives within oneself, and that one must orient oneself towards that chthonic God with the renunciation of a saint. Because the outward saint of tradition cannot accept this reverence for the unconscious God in oneself, the self-sacrificing tendency of the aspiring saint towards the outer world is always limited, one-sided, and so always destructive. But the bull, as a representation of nature, is whole, is the feeling emerging from the unconscious as a natural totality. What the patient's dream then indicates is the reorientation of the Christian attitude and its redirection towards the emergence of her own natural feeling.